Everyone, and thank you for joining us for FMT's presentation of Upgrading Microsoft Dynamics GP. My name is Lucas Darling, and I'm an account executive here at FMT, and I'm joined here by our very own VP of Consulting Services, Paul Clayton. He will be guiding you through this webinar today. First, I'd just like to go over the agenda. We'll get into the purpose of today's webinar, really the GP roadmap, where GP has been and where it's going, what is kind of entailed with an upgrade and your maintenance, what is needed to really apply an upgrade to your GP environment, and then we'll get into a Q&A session. And if at any point during the webinar you have a question, please put them in the question box below, and we'll go over them at the end of the webinar. And just to take a moment to educate a few of you on, if you're not familiar with FMT, here at FMT, we opened up for business in 1995, and in our 22 years of experience, we have successfully completed over 1,000 ERP projects with over 30 dedicated ERP consultants and over 300 clients spanning the US and into Canada. We're able to provide both functional and technical knowledge in all aspects of an ERP. That paired with a seamless transition to our dedicated customer care team, FMT really positions your company in a great spot to thrive. I do want to go through a few partners we get to work with and have the privilege to work with on a daily basis. Microsoft, who we've been working with for 22 years, we currently have 6 gold competencies with Microsoft, as well as a preferred CSP provider and Azure hosting provider. Oracle and NetSuite really recruited us years back because of our expertise in the ERP market, and we have become a preferred solution provider for them. And then Dell, we work with on a lot of our hardware aspects, and we became a preferred Dell partner with them as well through their Partner Direct team. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Paul Clayton, who will be taking over from here. Paul?
Thanks, Lucas. Again, on behalf of FMT, we'd like to thank everybody for joining our webinar today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Looking back on just some of the objectives relative to the agenda that Lucas introduced. Obviously today we want to educate and inform on the upgrade process and talk a little bit about GP 2018. Also the strategic direction as we understand it, where things are headed, and offer up a little of our thoughts relative to what GP is going to be doing kind of 2019 and beyond. Clarify options relative to what you can do and the options you have from an upgrade perspective, or potentially moving to other solutions or whatever those may be. We'll talk about those and hopefully help clarify them for you. Give you an opportunity to ask some questions at the end, like Lucas had mentioned, and also offer up a little bit of a assessment at the end that you may want to take advantage of, and I think would be very good to help you as an organization make a decision in terms of where you want to go. Okay, first I'd like to kind of take us back a little bit, take us back in time. Microsoft published a statement of direction for GP back in 2015, and it mapped out the releases through GP 2016. As you can see, the slide that we have up on the screen today maps out through 2019 and beyond, with GP 2018 really incorporating some of the top features that have been requested by you, the customer, and then we've got ongoing development as we move into GP 2019 and beyond. Really, in that statement of direction document, Microsoft's primary message was that it remains deeply committed to helping its customers, you and its partners, FMT, to thrive and grow in a mobile-first, cloud-first world. So the priorities around doing that were really enabling collaboration between companies and their partners, so their suppliers and their customers, and then developing and supporting a vibrant partner ecosystem to help serve you, the customer, and then also give you, the users of those business applications, the ability to drive maximum benefit and value from the business solution that they're using. So that document went on to say that key components of the Microsoft direction or cloud offering would be productivity. So those key components are productivity, platform, as well as business applications. So productivity being what many of you are using today, the Microsoft Office 365 products. Platform being that Microsoft Azure platform, which again, I think many of you may be familiar with today. And then the business application side really being the Dynamics business applications, those customer-centric business applications that including GP that you're using today. So in that vein, we have GP 2018 coming this December, which is great. We're all very excited about that. Today, we're going to talk about some of the features around GP 2018, what's going to be included there. One of those being Power BI enhancements. So some of you may be wondering, what's Power BI? Others actually probably use Power BI. We hope you do. If you haven't heard of it, you may actually own it and not be using it. It's something that FMT can help you figure out because it is a great tool. It's really a cloud-based business analytics tool, and it's optimized for the visualization of data. So it takes that data analysis and visualizes it for you. Very powerful BI tool. You can get things like KPIs, metrics, dashboards that contain top 5 customers by revenue, by region, might be top 5 product sales by product line, perhaps top 5 suppliers by quarterly spend. You know, some of those key metrics that'll really help you understand where the business is going and make sound business decisions based off of accurate data. So true GP integration with Power BI began with GP 2016, and then we just continued to enhance it through GP 2018. Workflow, we'll talk a little bit about Workflow 4.0 today and some enhancements related around that. Document attach, so again, document attach being introduced in earlier versions of GP, but they continue to enhance that functionality as well. Optimization around the core financials component of Dynamics GP as well as human resources and payroll. And then just kind of overall user experience enhancements, some of the things that some of you have probably been wondering when those were coming, and hopefully we can see that they're here. But these are general user experience enhancements that I think will make a difference in terms of being more effective in what you do in GP on a day-to-day basis. So Power BI, kind of focusing on that for just a little bit. Introduction of GP Power BI Content Pack. So really, what are content packs? So content packs, you can think of them as pre-built solutions for popular applications that work with Power BI. Power BI is really application agnostic, but we've got a GP Power Content Pack. So with that content pack, we can quickly load that up into your environment, and then you'll get data through live dashboards, interactive reports that have been pre-built again for GP. What's nice about these being interactive, that means you can jump into that metric or that KPI that's being published, and you can drill from a summary level back into the detail that's making up that specific revenue number or KPI that you're looking at. Power BI, again, not just GP related. You know, in addition to GP, we've got content packs for popular applications such as NetSuite, Dynamics 365, Salesforce.com, Marketo, and several others. So it's a very powerful tool that works across a wide range of applications. You'll notice we've got some other bullet points there that are more technical in nature, talking about paging and filtering within OData services. So OData is really just a REST protocol that allows us to interact with different applications and query data from different applications, pulling that into Power BI and just making that whole integration more seamless and more efficient. So how does this all come together from a GP perspective? Well, we can get Power BI dashboards right on your GP homepage. So here we've got a presentation of a GP homepage with a Power BI dashboard there where we've got total revenue broken up by region. Again, interactive, being able to dial into that north, east, south, west, or central value and then see what actually makes that up in terms of the detail. So I would be remiss not to mention that FMT has its own Power BI starter pack that we've developed, and we can use that to assist with connecting you to your data, again, regardless of your system, and quickly build out reports and dashboards, provide you with training to ensure that, again, you're drawing the most value from your BI solution. For those of you who are part of Office 365 or using Office 365 today, Power BI is a component of that solution. We really would like to help you, again, recognize the value that you've got within Power BI. If you're not using it today, we can help you get there. So let's move on to workflow. So there have been incremental advances in workflow, which now gives us workflow 4.0 in GP 2018. Previously it was workflow 3.0, excuse me, and now it's incremented to workflow 4.0. So some of the things we see there with those incremental advances are reminder emails for workflow, so better communication in terms of being able to send out those reminder emails for approvals that need to be addressed, or rejections or those types of things. We can make the configuration of the workflow step more efficient through copy features. So being able to copy it rather than having to reconfigure it, really giving you a head start in terms of configuring that workflow solution through the hierarchy process for that particular workflow type. GL account workflow approval. So again, building in that integrity within your system, ensuring that you've got accurate data, accurate information, specifically from a master record perspective, being put into GP. I mean, we all know what happens when we put in bad information or bad data, and we post transactions to GL accounts that were incorrectly set up. Say it was set up as a balance sheet rather than a P&L. We all know that has a major impact at year end in terms of being able to efficiently close our books and causes delay. Well, with GL account workflow approval, we can create that GL account. We can actually send that through a workflow review and approval process now and be able to ensure that gets correctly entered into the system from the very beginning. Some additional workflow enhancements include purchase receiving workflow, the purchasing enter match invoice process, which is very nice because we've had it on the purchasing, the payables side, but now we've got it on the purchase order enter match side as well. Additional reporting, giving more visibility to the workflow process and where things stand from a workflow perspective. Very, very helpful in terms of getting an understanding of where your documents are at in the workflow process. And then additional fields relative to payables, transaction, workflow, PO, workflow messages, that type of thing. A little bit of workflow too around EFT details for vendor. So lots of incremental enhancements there. We've really leveraged the workflow from recent implementations that we've done to make processes more efficient, really around the purchase order process and the payables process, even the general ledger journal entry process, just ensuring that we're using that workflow as much as possible and incorporating it to, again, give our folks the ability to take those workflow processes that were outside the system and being managed through Word documents or Excel documents attached to emails and maybe being left in the drafts of your Outlook and forgetting to send them and causing all types of delays and where's that at, to really being able to incorporate that into the system and having an immediate picture and view within the system of where that workflow and where that transaction stands. So really being able to gain lots of efficiency through the whole process in our workflow, our recent workflow implementations. So some enhancements relative to document attach, let's talk about those. GP introduced a document attach in version 2013. Really with a new and better method for storing documents associated with transactions. I mean, we all remember the old way that was done, and it was fairly ineffective and really you couldn't do anything with that attachment, and it wasn't stored from a SQL Server perspective. So there were issues relative to being able to ensure that attachment was reliably stored within the application. These days it is. It's stored, and it's stored within the SQL database, and it's kept there and in a very much more reliable and valid manner. So looking at the enhancements relative to document attach, there's been some new transactions added. So we've got document attach on receivables entry. We've got it on general ledger entry as well. So if you have a schedule that you need to attach to a specific journal entry, you can do that now. Employee inquiry. So again, if we got employee related documents that we want to associate to that employee ID within GP, we can do that. And then say we have specs, spec documents, PDFs, whatever, relative to particular fixed assets. If you are using the fixed asset management module within GP, we can attach documents to asset general information through inquiry. So lots of good features there. Document attach with I-9 forms, as well as vendor notes in vendor inquiry, customer notes on the customer inquiry. We got attach capability there. And then some additional functionality from a project perspective if you're using project accounting within GP as well. So as you can see, lots of good enhancements relative to document attach, bringing it into that kind of comprehensive document attachment feature. Just a quick note here to, I guess, underscore the extensibility of the purchase order, or sorry, the workflow process as well as document attach. Like I mentioned, in recent implementations, we've really leveraged these functions, and we at FMT have actually created customizations around document attach, which we hope to have incorporated into the application someday, just like these enhancements. These incremental changes are being made. But one of the interesting ones that we've done to kind of help to show the extensibility of document attach and workflow is when, for one of our customers, when they actually email invoices to their customer needs a list of serial numbers associated with that particular sales order that relates to the invoice, that sales order fulfillment. So when that sales invoice is emailed to the customer through the document attach feature, we actually go out and query the serial numbers from that sales order fulfillment for that invoice. And then we create an attachment that lists out each of the serial numbers, the items and the serial numbers, and are able to leverage the workflow capability and the document attach capability to bring that list of serial numbers along with the invoice into the customer email, so that the customer now gets an email with their invoice and their associated serial number detail, right? Making them more efficient, right? Because when they go to check that information in and receive that product, they've got the invoice and they've got the supporting documentation showing them the serial numbers that shipped with that particular sales order. Very, very extensible in terms of being able to take this functionality to the next level and kind of beyond what it's doing today. So let's talk about kind of some of the optimized financials capability. So some of you may be excited about emailing single statements from the customer card or the customer inquiry window. You used to have to be able to go to that statement ID window and build in all of your restrictions and filters and eventually come up with a statement that you're looking for. Now we can send that statement right from the customer card or the inquiry window. So very efficient in terms of getting the customer statement and emailing it out to the customer. One check per invoice vendor settings, so making it a little more efficient if we actually want to create a check per invoice, we can do that. And then save select payment settings, so most of you know that as select checks, but I think that window in terms of what it's been labeled in the past, used to be select checks, is now being relabeled to select payments, to bring that name of the window more in line with what you're actually doing within that window. So now you instead of having to build those select payments settings and build them each time you do a check run, you can actually save those settings and use them over and over again. So we got some others there in terms of displaying the hold status on the sales transaction entry window, some additional functionality relative to the PO generator and PO lists with PO filters. We can see PO numbers displayed on the requisition list now, so it's a little bit easier for the originator of that requisition to see how their requisition is associated, or to see which PO their requisition is associated to. We can print purchase requisitions. And then for those of you using analytical accounting, not a ton of you out there, but certainly are some out there, we've got more efficiency relative to being able to provide access to those AA transaction dimensions, or really you can think of analytical accounting as an extension of the GL account. So it's almost kind of like Project Light in terms of being able to record value or record or post transactions against GL accounts to maybe, GL account 5500, dimension A, B, or C, those types of things. So a little bit of increased capability there relative to being able to access those transaction dimensions. So in terms of human resources and payroll, a couple optimizations there for you in GP 2018 as far as cleaning up some of the lookup windows for deductions and benefit codes. We've got the ability to change department codes in payroll files, including historical. So we can kind of go back and change those department codes if we need to. Turning off the garnishment reports and the actual posting setup. So if you're familiar with the posting setup of GP, that's kind of in the high level setup where you can actually control what reports, posting journals, distribution breakdown journals, those types of things that are actually being printed. You can actually control that a little bit more. And then some ability in terms of being able to roll down payroll setup options to inactive records. So a little bit of increased functionality there relative to the human resources and payroll capabilities within GP. And then there's some overall kind of user experience enhancements that really relate to the core capabilities or the core functions, core financial functions within GP, more AP, AR, GL, bank rec related. So before we didn't have any sort capability to the receivables transaction entry by inquiry by customer or the payables transaction inquiry by vendor. So we get to be able to sort, have some increased ability there, and be able to sort our transactions right from those windows, which will be very helpful in terms of being able to find your transactions a little bit easier within those inquiry windows. Smart List favorites now have unique password protection. So instead of you having to apply a password on the Smart List category, which you could do before, now it's a unique favorite. So you can password protect a unique favorite, which is very handy. Smart List shortcuts in the web client are available. And then we've got some additional sorting capability to the receivables transaction inquiry by document instead of, like I mentioned up top, by customer, and then payables transaction inquiry by document as well. So a lot of good feature functionality enhancements around the around sorting capabilities and Smart Lists. So a couple more that we've got from a user experience enhancement perspective. System password is valid for the duration of the user session. So for you GP administrators out there or GP power users, you're probably familiar with the system password, you having to enter that password every time you go to a system related or administration related menu item. And each time you access that menu item, you've got to enter your system password, which is a good thing. It's good to have that. It's good to have that protection, but it got to be a little bit monotonous having to, if you were hitting 4 or 5 different menu options, having to put that password in each and every time. So now as a system administrator, the system password is valid for the duration of the user session. We got some autocomplete features now in the web client, which is good and helpful. Additional sorting in the bank reconciliation window. So all of you remember that bank reconciliation window with your cleared transactions and a lot of different information. So now being able to sort that information in different ways, again, to be able to optimize or be more efficient in that bank rec process. And then some window maximization capability within the web client for bank rec also. Some of the remaining ones that I want to just quickly talk about. So I talked about this one a little bit earlier, actually, renaming the payables window as payments instead of checks. And really that's that select checks window. It used to be called select checks, now called select payments. So that's a renamed window. And then some additional ability to be able to link your help icons to more tagged online support documents to be able to get to that help information a little bit easier. So let's talk about kind of where GP is headed. Sorry, kind of skipped ahead a little bit there. So, you know, and just in terms of GP itself, for those of you who don't know, it was one of Microsoft's original ERP solutions for small and medium-sized businesses. Microsoft acquired GP. It was called Great Plains. This was back in April of 2001, and it was acquired for $1.1 billion, billion with a B. So it was a significant investment that Microsoft made in that product, and they continued to invest in it, have continued to invest in it ever since it was acquired back in that 2001 timeframe. So we got over 50,000 customers. Microsoft has over 50,000 customers running GP, licensed for GP, and there's really, I'm not sure if there's a way to tell, but there's probably 3 to 4 times that in terms of the number of companies that are actually running GP. Because if you think of one customer, some of the implementations that FMT's done, it may be one customer that's licensed for GP, but they're actually running it based on their licensing structure. They're running it in 70 different legal entities, 70 different companies. So you've got maybe one customer, but they'll be running multiple companies on it. It really has worldwide presence. Here at FMT, we've done GP implementations for companies that have operations in Spain and Mexico and Canada, Germany, many different parts of the world where they were using GP locally in those operations. GP, obviously, most of you know, it's not optimized for too many different companies, but it does have that worldwide presence, and it is used in many different countries. Continues to receive strong ecosystem support through ISVs, third parties, and the products and applications that they're developing for GP. So we see the Avalaras and the Accello, Scribe, E1, many other third-party and ISV companies continuing to support and build their products around Dynamics GP up through the current versions. We're also seeing continued enhancements as we looked at that GP roadmap a little bit earlier, 2019 and beyond. We've got continued enhancements relative to really what customers are looking for. Based on customer requests and voting, and then ongoing development of the product into 2020 and beyond. Light evolution from a core application perspective, and by that I mean we're not seeing major releases or major development in terms of new functionality within the application. So if you think about a revamp of the way project accounting works within GP, or the incorporation of a recurring billing module to offer milestone billing versus schedule-based billing with integrated revenue recognition capabilities. You're not seeing a whole lot of those major functionality components or modules being incorporated. So I think we'll just continue to see those enhancements of existing features and making the product a more efficient and better product to use, like they've been doing with things like workflow and some of the general user experience enhancements that we looked at a bit earlier. So GP hasn't been a primary target for R&D funds, research and development funds, as of late. I think that's been more targeted towards their Dynamics 365 products, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's not to say that Microsoft doesn't continue to focus its development efforts on GP, making it a more efficient, bringing more value into the application. We're seeing it's again obviously evident through workflow enhancements, through a Power BI integration, and several other things that they're doing in terms of making it a more efficient and more valuable application for its users. So while those primary research and development dollars aren't being thrown into it, it still is getting to be a better and better product with each release that we see. So we're all asking the question. We're here to talk about the question. We're here to look at the options. Should I actually upgrade? Well, let's talk about some of the advantages of upgrading. So if we do upgrade, that means we're on the latest version and the functionality. We're leveraging our solution. We're on the forefront of the release of the solution and what it can do. So being on that latest version and being able to leverage the latest functionality, that means a lot to the organization and the efficiency with which the users can complete their day-to-day responsibilities within Dynamics GP. Upgrading ensures that we are within the mainstream support guidelines and timelines. We'll look at that a little bit, but we obviously have companies like FMT here to support you regardless of the Dynamics GP version that you're on. And we've been doing, as Lucas mentioned, this for 22 years. So we have a very solid team relative to GP support and GP implementation, and can really, really address any of your GP issues, again, regardless of your solution, because we're familiar with it. We've started with GP back when it was, some of you may have remembered as, I think it was Dynamics CS Plus back in 2002, 3, 4, and 5. And we were involved in implementing the product back in that time frame. So being on the mainstream support, being within the mainstream support guidelines is very key in order to making sure that if FMT for some reason needs to reach out to Microsoft to help address a support issue, it's one of the first things that the Microsoft support team asks, what version is your customer on? And if it's an unsupported version that's out of mainstream support, it becomes a bit more difficult to get Microsoft to help you out and offer up solutions to support issues, again, if you're not within mainstream support. Upgrading ensures decreases IT-related costs. So if we've got servers out there that are old and not being patched and on older versions of other applications, that definitely is going to increase your costs. We want to be on the latest versions, right? So we can keep those costs down. We can keep those servers well tuned. If you're in an on-premise environment, if you're in an Azure environment where GP is in the cloud, then you're really decreasing those IT-related costs because you're in more of an Azure cloud-based environment where you don't have the servers to be concerned about and the hardware to be concerned about. So upgrading really ensures that we keep those IT-related costs down. Upgrading also ensures that our system is kept future-ready. So by future-ready, we mean that if there are enhancements in products like Power BI, like we talked about a little bit earlier, where Power BI, the latest version, if it only runs off a later version of Dynamics GP and runs most effectively with that version, then you want to be able to incorporate that. You want to be able to integrate Power BI into your GP solution. So being on the latest version of GP ensures that those external integrated applications can easily be incorporated and easily communicate and readily communicate work with your GP solution. So being on that latest version keeps you future ready and keeps you on the brink of being able to leverage the latest technology and the latest applications outside of GP. And of course, we get an increase in efficiency and productivity through many of the things that we've already talked about, the user experience enhancements, the workflow enhancements, the document attach features, the email integration features that we have. All those help to increase the efficiency and productivity of what our GP users are doing on a day-to-day basis. What we don't recommend doing is waiting. So don't wait to decide. We're here to help. We can actually work you through this and talk you through this. But waiting causes some additional issues. If you're on older versions of GP, say GP 10 or 2010, you may feel this pain a little bit. Where we are seeing increased IT and hardware costs because we're having to patch those servers, we're having to maintain older servers, older SQL versions, older GP versions that may not work as efficiently with maybe some of our new Office productivity products that we're using, like Word and Excel and Outlook through Office 365. Software version lock. So if you're sitting on GP 10, GP 2010, you may be experiencing this, where you are kind of locked in that version, and you're locked in that version because of one reason or another. It may be because you've created customizations around that specific version, and you're unable to do without those customizations, and upgrading may present some risk there. So we can help you out of that software version lock by working with you on assessing your solution and figuring out how you get out of that and upgrade to a more recent version. Not upgrading means more solution downtime. It's just gonna happen. Older versions of GP, older servers, older versions of SQL, you're gonna have those issues where for one reason or another, a service stops and has to be restarted, or the server itself may have to be restarted. And those are situations where if you're on-prem, somebody's going to have to do that. If you're sitting in an Azure environment, then you're probably on a little bit more recent version of GP, but you still could be sitting on GP 2013 and experiencing downtime relative to kind of system inefficiencies. You may have more solution downtime during your actual upgrade as well, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you really want to ensure that you're minimizing that solution downtime by staying on a recent version of GP. You can see there down below mainstream support availability from Microsoft and some of the timeframes associated with that. So we talked about that earlier. But as you can see down at the bottom right, GP 2013 and 2013 R2 mainstream support ends April 10, 2018. So that we're gonna blow through the holidays here for 2017, celebrate the new year, and before you know it, we're gonna hit April of 2018, where GP 2013 and 2013 R2 mainstream support ends. So if you're not planning on your upgrade process already and what you should be doing to upgrade GP 2013 to GP 2018, then we need to start talking about that with you. You need to start planning that within your organization yourselves. GP 2015 and 2015 R2, you've got through April of 2020, and then GP 2016 is through 2021. So you're in pretty good shape there if you're on 2016. So, just to, kind of talk about a little story relative to a couple local clients that we have here in the San Diego area that have waited too long, you know, they've essentially delayed the process in being able to delayed the process in upgrading. So for them, that kind of has meant, you know, that not only delayed the process in being able to upgrade GP, but also other applications that interact with GP, right? So they're sitting on GP 2010, they're having to use certain versions of the Office Productivity Suite that are compatible with GP 2010, and that's pulling them back from an organizational perspective in terms of ensuring that they're on the latest and greatest Office 365 versions of the Productivity Suite that are available today. What we've also seen is you end up with more in-house homegrown applications. You know, in this instance, we've got a client that's on an older version of GP where they've had to create kind of their own homegrown budgeting and deferred revenue tracking solutions. And by doing that, they're creating good solutions, but they're investing dollars in solutions that are tied to older versions of their business application. You know, that means you're investing dollars in customized functionality that newer versions of GP already contain. So really decreasing your ability to recognize the value your GP solution has to offer when you do that. So, you know, those are areas where you really want to be careful and really want to start planning on how it is that I'm going to come out of that GP, that older version that may not be in mainstream support anymore, that may be where mainstream support may be ending as of April of next year, and figuring out how to upgrade. So let's talk a little bit around upgrade cost factors. What factors really impact upgrades? So platform and IT strategy. So this is big, right? Cloud-based solutions or cloud-based options, Microsoft Azure platform that we talked about. Do you really want to be an on-premise installation, or do you want to host your GP solution in the Microsoft Azure cloud environment? Some companies today have that need or that necessity to host their solutions on-premise, but 95% of the implementations that we're doing today are being done within the cloud environment, within the Microsoft Azure environment from a GP perspective, which really allows you to leverage all the capabilities around Office 365 and Dynamics GP, and you know, the associated applications in a kind of true cloud configuration. So GP version and the number of quote hops also can potentially affect your upgrade cost. So we talked about earlier, we talked about GP 2013 kind of coming out of mainstream support next year. Well, right now, as of today, there's no direct upgrade path from Dynamics GP to from Dynamics GP 2013 to Dynamics GP 2018. So that means to upgrade, you'd have to do a double hop, right? If you're coming from GP 10, that might be an additional hop. You might be talking about a triple hop from GP 2010 or 2010 to GP 2013, and then from 2013 maybe to 2015, and 2015 to 2018. So those hops can add additional time and additional costs to your upgrade. For those on GP 2015 and 2016, there are, as long as you're on certain releases or service packs of those versions, 2015 and 2016, then you're fine. There is an actual upgrade, direct upgrade path from 2015 to 2018 and 2016 to 2018. Some of the other things that might affect cost: GP database size and transaction volume. Right? It takes a little bit longer to run all the validations and checks on the database if your database size is very large and your transaction volume is very big. The number of GP companies, obviously, if you've got a lot of companies and a lot of databases associated with each one of those companies, then it's going to take a little bit more time, may impact the cost relative to just running that upgrade routine on multiple databases. Solution customizations and modifications may or may not impact. It just depends on that customization. ideally what we like to do at FMT is ensure that the customizations or modifications that we're writing are written in such a way that they are bolted on to the core function, so they can be unbolted during the upgrade. You upgrade the core and then you bolt that modification back in. And by doing that in a methodical way, that actually doesn't have as much of an impact on the cost. But from a testing perspective, as the customer, you want to ensure that once that modification is bolted back on, it's thoroughly tested to ensure that it works with the new and is compatible with the new or the updated GP version. Third-party products and integration. So if you're running a lot of third-party products, those obviously have to be upgraded as well with GP. And then integrations to other line of business systems. If you're using Scribe middleware or some other middleware protocol or application, those have to be thoroughly tested as well. Your change control process within the company may also impact the upgrade cost. If you're in a company that has strong change control process where things start in a development environment and then get promoted into a QA environment, and then they actually get tested in the QA environment and go through that change control process. And once that's all signed off, they get promoted then into the production environment. So in that type of environment, you're moving things along through a very controlled process, which is excellent in terms of ensuring quality by the time you promote it to production. But that may also impact the cost of the upgrade. All right, the good thing is you have options, right? You've got options in terms of your upgrades. So some of those options include just upgrading Dynamics GP. We've talked about that, right? Going from 2010 or 2013, 2015 or 2016 to 2018. Some of you may be candidates for GP re-implementation. Perhaps you're on such an old version of GP that you would be better off, or it would be more cost beneficial for you to actually just rebuy and re-implement the solution. So that's definitely an option as well. Dynamics 365 ERP products that's also an option. Those are purely cloud-based solutions that run on Azure data centers as well. But those Dynamics 365 for financials, there's actually two versions. There's Dynamics 365 for Financials Business Edition, and there's Dynamics 365 for Financials and Operations Enterprise Edition. Things are changing on a regular basis relative to those purely cloud-based products that are being offered from Microsoft. But the evolution of those products are very, very much in effect, and they are very quality products that are purely cloud system and device agnostic products. Then we also have NetSuite. NetSuite is definitely a great option in terms of migrating to perhaps a new solution. NetSuite, Oracle recently acquired NetSuite, so it's again browser agnostic, device agnostic, purely cloud solution that we'll talk a little bit more in detail about here in a minute, but a great solution in terms of comprehensive ERP functionality. So what is Dynamics 365? We talked about Dynamics 365 for Financials. The Business Edition is primarily what I'm showing here. It is a browser-based device agnostic solution with great Office 365 integration in terms of being capable of being integrated with your CRM product, or right out of the box, your Office 365 productivity suite, and integrating with Outlook. You can get quotes coming in from your customers via Outlook, and that integration is built right in to where we can create a sales order right from that email that we receive from our customer, a quote or an order. It's got great core financial management capability, inventory control, sales order processing, collaboration tools, like I mentioned with Outlook. Good purchase order processing, procurement tools, and then out of the box, as you can see, some grids there, tiles that are embedded within the application, reporting and analytics. So it's a very good tool in terms of an option to think about as far as going from Dynamics GP to Dynamics 365 if it's a fit. NetSuite, also an excellent, very comprehensive ERP solution. Has the customer and order management perspective. It's got the global multi-currency intercompany capabilities, top kind of best-in-class revenue management and and billing management capabilities in terms of subscription billing or associated deferred revenue tracking. It's got the whole ERP aspect relative to manufacturing, supply chain management, distribution, excellent capabilities around that, and then has a whole project management component to it as well. Really addresses the role-based approach in terms of how the solution is used by each one of the folks within the organization, and then interfaces with the partners as well from a vendors, customers, and business partner perspective in terms of customer portals and vendor portals that are available. Optimized for 150 different countries, and is really a unified solution that comes e-commerce ready. So in terms of e-commerce, we've got it built in within the platform as well. So it's not bolted on, it's built right within. So we get that really an intelligent order process in terms of being able to come right into the e-commerce suite, and then processing that order all the way through into the back office side. So thinking about this in terms of kind of a side-by-side comparison, and as far as the options that we talked about, upgrading GP, re-implementing GP, and migrating to a new solution. From a time perspective, the upgrade is not going to be, I kind of have 1 to 5 stars here in terms of 1 being low and 5 being high. The time is not going to be all that tremendous to upgrade from one version to the other. We can typically get that done within 2 to 4 weeks. It just depends on your organization and the solution. Re-implementing is going to take a little bit more time. Migrating to a new solution, oddly enough, might take a little bit less time. It just depends on what you're doing. Some of the functions that you're doing that are being bolted on to your GP solution may very well be embedded within the application that you're moving to a NetSuite or Dynamics 365. So you may be able to recognize additional efficiency and value and migrate to your new solution in less time. Costs will remain on the lower side relative to the straight upgrade. Re-implementing might cost you a little bit more money. Migrating to a new solution, potentially even more as you're moving from one solution to the other and moving all that configuration. Adoption from a user perspective is going to be high no matter what the option, right? Your upgrade is you're going to be using some of the new features that we reviewed earlier. Same thing with re-implementation, using those new features, and really being already familiar with the solution is going to yield the high adoption rate. And in terms of continuity, that's really from a data perspective. Upgrading helps you really maintain all that historical data, right? You're upgrading the existing database, so you're maintaining that historical data. There's still the opportunity to do that from a re-implementation and a migration to a new product standpoint, but you've got to migrate that data, so that may drive up the cost slightly. So just some things to think about there relative to that side-by-side comparison. So it's your move. Which option is right for you? There's a lot of options we've talked about today, right? We've got the pure cloud option through NetSuite or Dynamics 365. We have that hybrid option of taking the Dynamics GP environment and hosting it within the Azure environment. And then you also have some companies that today are still prime candidates for those on-premise solutions where they're holding and storing the servers on-prem and doing the installation and maintaining the hardware on-prem. Really, for the pure cloud and hybrid solutions, Microsoft, as well as Microsoft really deploys their cloud-based solutions, like I mentioned earlier, in the Microsoft Azure data centers in different geographical locations around the world. With redundancy. NetSuite does the same thing in various Oracle NetSuite data centers, and really both of the solutions are adhering to leading data protection and privacy laws. So it's easy to argue that from a security and disaster recovery and redundancy perspective, those pure cloud-based solutions are more secure and more redundant than your on-premise solutions are. So we have an offer for you. I talked a little bit about this earlier. What we would like to do is come in and work with you. FMT would like to work with you to do a high-level solution overview and really document recommendations and a plan in terms of how we think you would recognize the most value as far as upgrading or migrating to a new solution. We're really interested in understanding from your perspective, what are your business objectives? What issues from a business standpoint are getting in the way of you achieving those objectives? From your standpoint, what are the solutions? How can I get beyond those issues? And then how can FMT then show you the value of your selection? You know, whether that be a cloud-based solution, moving to Dynamics 365 or NetSuite, or staying on GP and upgrading. We'll sit down with you and we'll go through that on a one-on-one review of a proposed plan on what would work best and where you'd get the most value out of your solution going forward. We'll do that for fixed price, and for today's participants only in this webinar, we're going to credit that towards a future project if you decide to move into an upgrade, or if you decide to migrate to a different solution. We're going to give you some credit there. So kind of moving on, I think that's it in terms of what we have today. If there are, I haven't looked yet, but if there are questions within the question panel, we'd love to address some of those.
Yeah, Paul, we do have a few questions here. One is, when does GP 2013 sunset, and can we upgrade to the latest version from 2013? You might have mentioned that before, but it's always good for a refresh.
So mainstream support ends April of next year, April 2018, and currently there isn't a direct path. So you'll have to go from GP 2013 to a version of 2015. That's that double hop I was talking about, and then from 2015 to 2018. So there is a little bit of an extra hop in there, but we're used to doing that and can certainly help out with it and draw up a plan around that.
And then we got another one here, Paul. Will GP 2018 be included in the year-end update like GP 2016 R2 was this past year?
From what we understand today, the answer to that is no. I know that that's typically been the case, but the GP 2018 version will not be included in the year-end update like it's been in the past. That's what my understanding is as of today. If that that changes, obviously we'll want to let people know. And I think one way you can actually kind of stay abreast of what's going on with that, there is a GP support and services blog out there. So if you Google the GP support and services blog for GP 2018, Microsoft is publishing periodic blogs against that, or periodic updates against that blog that actually will give you the upgrade paths that we've been talking about, and it's got some frequently asked questions, answers to frequently asked questions as well.
So, Paul, yeah, that wraps up all the questions. There are a couple questions individually we'll take offline with that individual. One that I do want to let everybody know, will slides be made available? Yes, they will. We will be following up with everybody who attended today at the end of this webinar, and we will be posting this webinar on our YouTube channel as well.
Excellent. So what's next? We've got some upcoming events at FMT that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. We have our Dynamics year-end close training events coming up. Those are excellent events that we typically host live. We've done webinars in the past as well, so stay tuned for those. The year-end process is something that you only do at year-end, so it's good to get that refresher and understand what you need to do from a year-end close perspective. Very valuable training event to attend. We've got our Dynamics GP 2018 new features review. So I showed the features at a high level today. We're going to dive into them much deeper during that 2018 new feature review. That's likely coming in the late January, early February timeframe for you. And then we have ongoing Dynamics 365. We talked about Dynamics 365 for Financials Business Edition today, but ongoing Dynamics 365 product webinars that we do. So keep in touch with those and attend them. Very informative sessions as they come up. So we talked about the assessment. We'd love to help you out there. You've got an email address there that you can send to us. And again, I just want to thank everybody for attending today, and wish you a good rest of the week. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. And I want to touch on this again. You will get free credit towards an assessment for us to go in and really scope out your environment, and then you kind of get recommended next steps on what FMT thinks for upgrading your GP. And you can email that offers@fmtconsultants.com, and we can get you all the information you need. I do want to thank everybody for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. And